What's that groovy 90s sound?
The groovy 90s sound is the Korg Volca sample.
Yes, indeed. This is in fact the first in a series that we're doing about the Korg Volca series, and this is the penultimate version because the sample was the one before last to come out. We just did a review of the Volca FM, which was hugely popular, and we just thought, you know, there's obviously a really big appetite for this. People are lapping this stuff up, right?
Yeah, and there's like a whole kind of community around using Volcas. They are hackable objects. There's all sorts of accessories, and now they've a few years in. There's, you know, we thought it's worth coming back and having a look at them and maybe sort of exploring.
Which is what we're going to do. So before we get going, though, I'm Nick Batt, editor of sonicstate.com.
And I'm Gaz Williams, bass player, music technologist.
We should say that we have a competition in this particular episode, so stay tuned for details of what you can win. Yeah,
so I mean, we looked first at the Volca sample last year, beginning of last year now. So
we loved it, frankly, didn't we?
We did. I mean, and at the moment we've got it loaded with the stock samples that it comes with. There's only 4 megabytes of RAM. You can look back at the review to see. I mean, 4 megabytes of RAM in some ways is a big limitation, but it's kind of a creative limitation,
which is not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing in some ways. And really, where the Volca sample really shines is as a drum machine, because
it's got a fantastic bottom end, hasn't it?
It's fantastic bottom end. And also, it was the first Volca to introduce swing as well. So, you know, so in many ways, it's actually it's better than the Volca Beats, in my opinion, as a drum machine.
Yeah, well, it sounds better for a start.
However, and in the review...
Yes, well, this is as we know, it's a 10-part sample player.
10-part sample player. But really, it's very fussy and awkward if you want to use it to sequence melodically on it. And that's kind of frustrating, because it does actually sound so good. Should mention, then, it's 10 parts, and those 10 parts are all addressable on separate MIDI channels.
Which also means if you plug a MIDI keyboard into it, you can't just play pads unless you have a 10-way split with different channels.
Probably the main limitation, in my opinion, is the fact that to put in tuned melodies involves having to sort of write it in as automation, holding the function button down and turning the speed knob to lock it to chromatic notes.
What a nightmare!
It's a pain, and you just end up, just not doing it. You know.
But there's a solution, and this is what's very exciting. And it's kind of blown our minds a little bit because it's such a creative idea, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a company called Retrokits, and what Retrokits have released is a MIDI cable.
Woohoo!
But this is a MIDI cable with a difference.
Yeah, well, we'll look at this end. This in fact looks like it's one that was just maybe bought from Tomon or somewhere like that. It's a metre long.
Yeah.
We've got the normal moulded end here, and then the other end here. This has been retrofitted with a processor, which is the NXP 32-bit LPC 812 CPU, I think, which is a very wise choice, I must say. But what that means is it can take incoming MIDI and sort of transmogrify it, transform it into what the Volca sample needs to play pitches. So it quantizes note value to the controller value that gives you... I mean, it's very clever.
And it also puts those 10 MIDI channels all onto kind of like one channel. So, well, essentially, you play as from one keyboard and it splits them into the 10 channels.
Very clever stuff.
Yeah, so we've got it going into an extension here because it's a little short, only a metre long. Whether Retrokits can specify the length, you know, that's something. But what we've got here then is we've got an M Audio Axiom.
Regular M Audio Axiom, just set to MIDI channel 11 in this case.
Yep, and what I can do here is if I...
You can access all 10 notes.
Yeah, all 10 notes, and that's great because it means then you
can record a pattern, finger drum,
or I've got them mapped a bit.
It means better. Or you could add pads to it. I mean, it means that you can play the samples. So that could be useful if you just want to use it as a module or record patterns in a more sort of finger drummy vibey way, right?
But look at this. Take a pitch note. So,
right, and that's what that's doing now, is you select the voice in the bottom octave.
Yep.
And then you can play it over the next, is it 2-octave range, I think? Yeah.
I think about 2 octaves. Really, if you're a Volca sample user, you might be jumping out your chair with joy on this, because it really is.
I mean, to be fair, I mean, it's worth saying that, yes, you could make this happen if you created some kind of MIDI transformer thing in your DAW in Logic or whatever, anything that will allow you to transform incoming MIDI and outgoing MIDI. But this is, because it's fixed in a cable, it means you don't have to have the computer involved at all.
No, so I think what we should do, Nick, I'd like you to revisit those early 90s kind of house music days.
I'll see what I can do.
See if you can make
Stand back.
Now, there are a few things we should mention. If we just simply go into record, that's not the whole thing.
Because, of course, when you're mapping the note to the controller, that is effectively motion recording, which is not note recording. So you're ending up with, so you have to be in motion record mode to be able to record the pitches. That's one downside.
Another thing to be aware of as well is you might think that just selecting your samples here is going to select your recording channel.
No.
No, you have to
select which part you're recording on and then be in record.
Either with the steps here or...
Let's find a bass drum. So give me a bass drum. If you give me a 4, just on steps. Because I can't, there's got no metronome either. This.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to go into step mode here and just drop in 4 kicks.
Yeah, so then press play.
It's a bit slow.
It's just what I like. So if I now press, we're in motion record. I need to make sure that I'm, so that's part 1. I need to be, it's out of step record.
Yeah, drop into record.
I need to select, so, oh, I've just recorded that. That was unexpected.
That's nice.
So what I've also done, you may have noticed, if I stop that there, the modulation is affecting the cutoff because I've mapped it. This is also something that's mapped within the little processor. Good old NXP 32-bit LPC 812. And then the pitch bend is set to sample end. So you can actually sort of affect the trim. So, and also velocity is mapped to level. So that gives me all of these extra parameters to play with, which are then recorded via motion control.
So, you know, we can actually as well play a beat in.
Yep, we could just do a kind of, so if we go to a separate pack, let me find it.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So
yeah, I need a metronome.
Save that one. Step mode, and let's just go in. We'll just go 4s.
That'll give me something to work with. So now I could just record.
So I'll drop in the record. Here we go.
So now what I want to do, I want to record this part in as well. So I'm going back to make sure I've got the voice selected. Now, this brings up an interesting point. You can hear that there's some glide and movement going on in that sound. And that's because, obviously, this is translating that to controller value. And I think the Volca tries to smooth some of the motion. So if some of the steps are high, you get this slightly unpredictable kind of portamento, which you may love or you may not. Yeah. So that's one thing about it. Let's swap back to our
and that isn't a problem of the Retrokits cable. That is simply
because this isn't responding to note data; it's responding to controller data.
To controller data, yes. So, but it still allows such a lot more real-time interaction than in its kind of sort of standard format. So I think there's a lot to be said for what Retrokits have achieved here. Now you might think, well, just a cable. How on earth do you get to any settings? How do you change the MIDI channels of the cable?
And this is also super cool, right?
Yeah.
Take it away, Gaz.
Okay, so what they've done is that they're using web MIDI as a kind of means to communicate with the cable itself. So you'd have the cable connected. In this case, we've got it connected to the M Audio Axiom,
which is a USB device on the host computer.
Yeah. And we would look here and any select the MIDI out interface, and we choose the Axiom. And then as we scroll through the page, should mention, we're using Google Chrome. The browser has to support web MIDI.
Web MIDI, yeah.
Yeah, so here we can change the channel, we can choose which octave the switching takes place in, and maybe of more interest is the performance mapping here, where we can set what the pitch and the velocity and what the mod wheels do. And this is where we saw, as Nick demonstrated, we've got the pitch, which is going to sample
length, I think.
Sample length it is, yeah, sample length. Mod wheel, which is going to the
filter,
the high cut filter.
And you can see this obviously isn't bi-directional because we've only got one cable, so it doesn't remember the settings or anything on the web page. But you know, there's only a few of them, so it's no problem.
But speaking about remembering, though, once you've actually done those things happen instantaneous into the cable, and as soon as you unplug the cable,
it's got flash RAM in it.
It's in there.
So and it remembers how it is. It's astonishing, isn't it?
Yeah, and power. You'd think, well, where does the power come from?
Well, there are those Ploytech MIDI synthesizers as well. You know, there's little boxes, they power, and I'm guessing they might have a similar kind of setup type processor.
Yes, so it's actually taking there's a little bit of current, isn't there, in MIDI?
Yeah.
But there is something to be aware of, that some MIDI devices don't provide enough power. Now, there's a website called there's a company called midisolutions.com, and they've got a big list of compatible devices or incompatible devices. So it might be worth just checking there first to make sure that your controller does actually provide enough power, because that, you know, but it uses such a little amount of power.
But basically, what's so cool about this is it's a hardware solution that you just plug in. You don't have to have the computer hooked up once you've told it what you want it to do.
Yeah.
And you could use it for playing live, all of those things. It's a really smart, elegant kind of, the sort of solution that I just really appreciate. I think it goes for about, what's it, 35 euros?
35 euros, $40.
Right.
And
so it's an expensive MIDI cable, but it does, what it does to the Volca sample is really quite spectacular, I think.
Definitely. I think really, you know, I was over the moon. I couldn't believe it. I really was so amazed that that could actually happen. And there's more.
Yeah, the thing that's very interesting about this also is that because the firmware in it is upgradable, it can be updated to do lots of other things as well. It doesn't have to just do what the sample is. There's talk of them maybe doing other functions, and in fact there is an arpeggiator firmware which we've got installed in another lead.
Into this actual lead, yeah. This one is an arpeggiator, and that arpeggiator isn't specifically aimed at the Volcas, can be used with anything. And there's a lot of adjustability to the arpeggio.
The gate length, the pattern. You can even tap tempo the clock, which can then be used to, if you plug it into a Volca, could be used to actually drive the MIDI clock, which could then drive other Volcas. It's all done by key switching, so it's C key plus modifier equals all the various different parameters.
And the good news is, if you did buy the cable, the Volca sample cable, and then decided that you wanted an arpeggiator,
just bung the firmware in. In fact, isn't there there's a link on the top of this webpage, isn't there? You just download the firmware.
Yeah.
Play it in via, some kind of MIDI file player, and off you go.
Yeah. So, you know, all in all, really excellent. And even better news is...
Yes, we are going to be giving away... Well, we're not giving it away. Retrokits are giving away a special version of this lead. All you have to do to enter to win the competition... this is going to work on the YouTube comments because it's just much easier to administrate. Leave a comment below and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. So subscribe, then leave a comment, and we will pick a random winner. And then Mr. Retrokits will send out a special sonicstate version of the lead.
Sonicstate exclusive lead, yeah. So fantastic. So yeah, I reckon big thumbs up from me. And you know, as a big Volca fan, I think, and a Volca sample fan especially, amazing. Really great.
Brilliant. So that's it. Thanks very much for watching. Don't forget, enter the competition to win this cable.
Yeah.
Comment below and subscribe to the channel. And hell, why not subscribe to the channel anyway? Because we've got more of these things coming along.
Yeah, watch out. We've got a few more episodes in this little special Volca series that are coming soon.
See you next time.